What's up guys, Ross here on MGF Customs, back with some brand new progress toward my upcoming second LEGO Mandalorian Season 2 custom minifigure showcase video featuring Bo-Katan in particular, as she is the sole focus of this video and my sole focus of this past week, as I have been primarily working on her. After making significant progress and finishing the helmet, I decided to sort of take it much further so I would be able to do this photo. And let's just go ahead and dive right into things. If you saw the last update video, then you know that I'm using this really fantastic custom Night Owl helmet by LM9 Productions. My buddy Aaron had these casted by Forge 510, and I finally had the opportunity now to paint one up for the Mandalorian Season 2. And I did paint in the visor first, and then the process of painting the white color was just sort of like applying a base layer of matte white paint, then sort of airbrushing some glossy white paint, sort of dry brushing that on there, and then I did the same thing but now with the matte color as well. And it was a little bit tough, really kind of had to water down the paint to get a smooth white surface since white paint is so difficult to work with, but I did get it down. And really what was the bigger challenge actually was then going ahead and painting the forehead detail on the front of the helmet there, as this had to be done very precisely, as like I just said, white paint is very difficult to work with and I really don't want to be introducing too much white paint if I don't have to. And so while mistakes always happen inevitably during the customizing and the painting process, I really just wanted to make sure that I was focused and as precise as possible in painting these designs using the tiniest little bits of paint possible, and was just very intentional with each one of these symbols. And thankfully it worked out for the most part. I was able to reduce the mistakes probably by like 70%, whereas normally I let myself make plenty of mistakes and just correct as I go. Regardless, they turned out looking really awesome. But then came the weathering process, which was honestly probably the most fun I've had with this figure so far, as I was able to really kind of use some new strategies for weathering that I otherwise haven't really done before on previous custom minifigures. Like Bo-Katan, if you look at her helmet in the show, actually has like little blue chips everywhere where the paint actually is kind of like coming off, and in those gashes you can see through to the base color of her helmet. So actually being able to do more than just like, you know, your basic scratches or watered down gray paint, which I was employing a lot here, I was also able to do those little blue markings, and that was a really fun effect to go ahead and try to achieve. And really the key to all of this, to weathering Bo-Katan's helmet, to getting all these marks on here, was actually just watering down the paint. And when I say watering it down, I mean taking the tiny bit of paint that I had on my pushpin and then just kind of dipping it in water very lightly, not like dunking it, but just getting it watered down just a little bit, each little tiny bit of paint that I used, and just being very intentional and very purposeful about where everything was going. And I actually kept this helmet very screen accurate. If you go ahead and compare the helmet to the one seen in the Mandalorian Season 2, you will find that my helmet is actually pretty darn close, and I'm super proud of that. I wasn't really planning on going for screen accuracy until I realized that it was definitely doable, but the weathering process was just so much fun, and is by far, I think, the best and most realistic weathered piece I have ever done. And actually really quick, I almost forgot, before all of that weathering, the base color of Bo's helmet, that light blue, it took me 3 tries to get it right because I always wound up mixing the color too dark. And shortly thereafter, I finished sculpting the backs of Bo's gauntlets and then glued in the custom printed parts by Nate's Minifigs. So of course, as you saw in the previous video, that includes the torso armor and the belt pieces on both sides, and I actually did implement my own belt buckle for Bo as well. And the process for painting this torso piece was basically the same thing, right, where I'm just watering down bits of metallic paint. However, I actually used some silver on this one because I actually was only using metallic white for the scratches and stuff on the helmet, because the white is just more pronounced and actually a little bit more screen accurate, whereas with the silver scratches and stuff on the chest armor, I kind of wanted to make it a little bit more dull. And I'm not even entirely convinced I'm done with this. I might actually add some more scratches, but again, really it's just all about watering down that paint, using very tiny little bits, and just going really slow, being precise, being intentional, and correcting if necessary. It's certainly a lot easier to correct with gunmetal paint than it is with white paint. And while I was working on the belt, it occurred to me that there was certainly not enough space in between the torso armor and the belt to get the brown paint in place, which was kind of a mistake on my part. I really should have painted the top of these pouches before I glued them in place. I should have accounted for that. Regardless, this was now going to require a little bit more precision, so I took my brush, wet it just a bit so that it was nice and flat, and then put a little bit of that brown paint on there, that chocolate brown paint, and then very carefully, again, very precisely, just kind of sliding the paint in there and just kind of taking care to not brush up against the torso, and really making sure the paint only remains remains on those tops of the pouches. Now we're going to shift over to the arms that of course feature my custom sculpted armor, which I am really proud of. I think that this armor actually turned out a little bit better than Din Djarin even, especially the Whistling Birds piece. But now that I was able to finally start to paint these sculpted sections, I must say I was dreading painting the Night Owl symbols a little bit. It's just always a tedious affair having to paint any symbols on this scale, but I painted those black circles on there and really did my best to sort of perfect those, and then the same thing by filling in with white, but then actually going in and applying the dark gray paint for the actual Night Owl symbols themselves for those designs. It was more of the same thing with the helmet, where it's like, okay, I want to be as precise as I possibly can be, using as little paint as possible to really make sure that I am not introducing any more white paint unless I absolutely have to. And inevitably this did occur here with the symbols and on the helmet, as I mentioned, and so I did have to add a little bit of white paint in some tiny spots, but I was able to kind of roll over it and smooth it out, and it's really just all about sort of mitigating how much white paint is used. Then the jetpack, this is actually the Din Djarin version 1 jetpack by Tuminio. However, I actually just trimmed down the thrusters a little bit and then sculpted my own like torpedo rocket head on the top to match Bo-Katan's in the show. I also glued in like the little tiny pipe on the upper left side. The whole process, and this is something that I kind of wanted to highlight here because I don't know if I really talked about this in any previous videos, just sort of the painting process with jetpacks sort of goes in layers. You kind of start with the area furthest to the back and then just fill that area in with paint and sort of allow the paint to go onto other parts of the jetpack where you otherwise may not want it quite yet. Let that dry and then go over it with the base color. In this case, it's black. And then once that overlapping is done with the primary color again, you now have the new color, in this case, the gunmetal, precisely painted into that specific area. And you just kind of keep doing this, building your way out when painting jetpacks or really any complex sculpts like this. And it's a really helpful thing to pay attention to, so long as you're just kind of really focusing and thinking about everything, and again, being intentional throughout the process. It's actually fairly straightforward to paint pieces like this, and I still have some detail to do on the jetpack actually. As a matter of fact, a good amount of detail to do on the front and a little bit on the sides, but overall I'm really happy with how it's turning out thus far, and I did manage to paint it up until the point where I was able to take the preview photo. Alright guys, well that's actually already going to do it for this video. Let me know how many times I said precise throughout it. I would really appreciate any feedback you guys have down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I am so happy making these figures, just getting the chance to make, you know, Bo-Katan and Ahsoka now that they've stepped into live action, you know, Boba Fett now that he has returned for the first time since, you know, the Clone Wars, and it's just so exciting. I was actually working on Boba Fett last night for like 2 hours as I was drilling in a tiny little slot inside his rangefinder and the helmet to install micro magnets, and that's going to be for my next video once I've made some significant progress on Boba. But I am loving working with all these custom parts from all these amazing customizers. Links to their stores will be down in the description below. But I have finally finished Ahsoka's head sculpt as well, and I'm painting the base color for that now, so the next video should have some new progress on both Boba and Ahsoka. I'm just so glad to be finally painting that piece. I feel like it has been in the raw sculpted Procreate state for like my entire life, and man, I just want to include this here. It is getting tough for me to not just drop everything and paint these parts from Nate's minifigs. Obviously, I'm working with the parts to make Boba Fett, but I also really want to make Casca Reeves and Axe Woves now, the other two Night Owl Mandalorians that accompanied Bo in Chapter 11. It would just be so much easier with all of the sculpting work kind of mitigated to a large degree, and I don't think I'll have time, to be quite honest with you, but I think I might be able to do some half customs of them, I think, which would be really cool just to sort of complete the set. Let me know what you guys think of that idea down in the comments. And if you're still here, I guess you liked the video, so you can click the like button. That helps. Apparently, the YouTube algorithm, we live and die based on that goddamn button. But if you want to keep up with me and see all the progress for all these custom minifigures first, it has been going up over on Patreon exclusively, as always, well before it reached Instagram, and certainly long before it reached this video. Everyone has seen Bo-Katan over there for like, I think the past week and a half now. And once I finish painting the new jetpack for my Din Djarin, I will be doing a making of video for both the Mandalorian and Grogu over there as well, which is something that I'm excited about. I'm just going to kind of sit at the mic and just talk about making those two figures. And then there's also going to be a new weekly vlog up on the second channel, MGF Extra, if you want to keep up with me there. It's always fun doing those. WandaVision reactions, potentially too. And finally, as always, you've heard it countless times, you can follow me over on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where I post these pictures and all my Photoshop edits and, you know, all that fun stuff that I really enjoy doing. And I also do post occasionally on TikTok as well, if that's a thing for you. But I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you, as always, for being so patient with me, working my hardest to get this done, and I will see you guys next time. All right, everybody, stay safe out there, take care, keep creating, and this is the way.